Hi there, my name is Keith Farnan. I'm an Irish comedian. I have been asked to help advise you on the benefits of taking the vaccine for coronavirus, but I'm a comedian, so I'm not sure if I would listen to me. Some people might say, why don't you just follow the government guidelines? I personally wouldn't follow the government out of a burning building if they were carrying a swimming pool of water. I do like science, though. I do like science, and I like scientists, and I'm talking to you today because of science, and you're listening to me because of science, and generally our lives are easier because of science, so I tend to trust science a bit more. I also like films, and one film I really like is the film Contagion, which came out about 10 years ago. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by a Scott Z. Burns, but it predicted a respiratory illness coming out of China, to which one of the solutions was social distancing. So I thought, let's talk to the scientific advisor on that, who is a Dr. Ian Lipkin. Now, Dr. Lipkin is one of the foremost epidemiologists in the world. Look him up online. He has been at the forefront of every outbreak in the last 30 years. He is essentially the man when it comes to viruses. So I thought I'd ask him a few questions about the vaccine. That seemed a lot better than just listening to a comedian. So, Dr. Lipkin, thanks so much for helping us with these questions. First question, the vaccine arrived quite quickly. Does that mean it's not safe?
Many people are concerned about this, and the fact of the matter is that the vaccines we're using in the UK and in Ireland and in the US are safe. We don't have a lot of information about the vaccines coming out of China and Russia. I don't know if they're safe or effective because we don't really have the data required to evaluate them and recommend or disqualify them. The most common criticism for the movie Contagion that we made almost 10 years ago now is that there was no way that a vaccine could be made safely within the year of the onset of a pandemic. But in fact, we've done exactly this, precisely because we have technologies that allow us to make them rapidly, and we actually pursued a series of parallel tracks which allowed us to push it out very quickly. This required investments of substantial amounts of resource, lots of money, but we've taken them through all the safety profiling that we need to do. These are as safe as any vaccines that we've made for other purposes.
So does that mean the timetable was reasonable?
I think it was reasonable. The people who are paying the bill may feel differently, but I think we've been able to truncate it in a way that is both safe and has been quite effective. And this is really because of advances in biotechnology over the past 25 to 30 years. So once we get the sequence of a virus, which is what we got at the beginning of the second week of January, the release of that sequence, genetic sequence, allowed people to very rapidly use molecular tools, DNA-based tools, to create virus vaccines on a wide range of platforms. Now, in the UK, the one that's most commonly used is this one from Oxford, AstraZeneca, which is based on a virus where you insert, just like a cassette, like the old days with a cassette tape, whatever it is you want to deliver as your payload to the immune system. In the United States, we have a similar vaccine made by Johnson & Johnson, but the ones that are most popular on this side of the pond are produced by Moderna and Pfizer. And those don't include any proteins at all. They just include nucleic acid. You inject that into cells, and they then produce the proteins to which you make an immune response.
Will there be possible side effects like headaches, the injected arm feeling heavy, flu-like symptoms, that sort of thing?
Yes, many people do have side effects, but they're really quite mild. And as you said, it might be a headache, your arm may hurt, you can have flu-like symptoms. These are typically transient. There are some rare side effects, which I'm sure you're going to want to go into.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of really adverse effects, are they rare, are they common?
They're really rare. It's less than 1 in a million. There are reports of people who have certain kinds of clotting disorders and strokes and other kinds of problems like pulmonary emboli. We're talking about something like 1 in a million or less. These are more common in women in reproductive age, say between 18 and 50. So we recommend that there are some vaccines that are less likely to be associated with those kinds of clotting disorders. It doesn't really matter for men, but for women, this can be important. So we would recommend that people between the ages of 18 and 49, if they're women, take one of the other vaccines, for example, like, the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine if it's available. Now, if it's not available, you're still better off with the vaccine because the risk of having a clot is far less than the risk associated with getting infected with this virus and developing COVID.
Okay, now some people have some other very specific worries, like does the vaccine alter your DNA?
No, the vaccine does not alter your DNA. It also doesn't erase wrinkles or any of the other things that some people would like the vaccine to do.
That's such a shame. I really wanted some better DNA, I'll be honest with you.
Or grow hair. Nothing like this.
I don't need that, yeah.
Sadly. So all this vaccine does is deliver a payload of something that looks like the outside of the virus that turns on the immune system that gives you protection against infection.
Okay, similar sort of line of thinking. Will you be tracked by a microchip in the vaccine?
This is one of the more bizarre myths about this vaccine. I don't know of a chip small enough to pass through the hole of a needle, but to rest assured that there is no such component in a vaccine. I can't imagine how you would make it.
Okay, does the vaccine have any long-term effects that we should know of?
Yes, it should protect you against infection with this virus, which I think is a good thing.
Okay, should I wait for others to take it before I take it?
No, there are two reasons that we should take the vaccine now. The first, of course, is that you protect yourself. So even if you become infected, which is quite rare if you've received the vaccine and taken it faithfully, you also have a reduction in your ability to infect other people, so you can protect your family, your friends, your community. And although there will be new vaccines that will be coming down the pike over the next couple of years, they are not going to differ dramatically. They will be boosters that will address some of the new variants. But if you want to be protected as best we can right now, the vaccine is really your best choice.
Okay, broadly speaking though, will the vaccine, say, adversely affect anyone with a weakened immune system?
So this is a much more tricky sort of question. It's not so much that the vaccine, if you're taking but first of all, if you have an altered immune system is compromised, you may not develop a good immune response to the vaccine. Now, some people don't make antibodies. Some people have problems with T cells, which are also important in protection against infection. So these are the kinds of conversations you'll have to have with your healthcare provider.
After I get the vaccine, can I just throw away my mask and start hugging people immediately?
Well, sadly, no. First of all, you only get partial protection if you're taking a 2-dose vaccine after the first dose. So you get your maximal protection after you get your second dose. Now, there are some vaccines for which there's only 1 dose, in which case that's when you see your maximal effect. But it takes something like 2 to 4 weeks after your second dose or your first dose of the 1-dose vaccine to get your maximal protection. And even then, you don't have 100% protection. You're not bulletproof. You've reduced your risk dramatically for having severe disease and for your ability to become infected. But until we get the entire world population immunized, it's going to be difficult to envision a situation where you can go anywhere at any time and throw away your mask. If you are with people you know, everyone has been vaccinated, then you have the ability, I think, to come together as a family, as friends and so forth. And I expect that we will be getting back to something much more like normal in the very near future. This will probably happen country by country. So in the United States, we hope to have everyone vaccinated within the next few months. And I think in Ireland and the UK, similar kinds of expectations. But there are parts of the world right now that are red hot. India, for example, absolutely tragic what's going on there. So they need to be vaccinated. We have to vaccinate close to 8 billion people before we can get this virus completely under control.
In terms of people who've already had the vaccine, if you've had it already, does this help? Does the vaccine help extend the period of protection from getting it again?
Yes. So, for example, I was infected in March of last year, and I took the vaccine. I got the Pfizer vaccine. Not that I'm saying the Pfizer vaccine is the best vaccine. Any vaccine is good, and the best vaccine for you is the one that you can get. But I took the vaccine again because the vaccine gives you longer duration of immunity than does infection. There are some people who think that if you've been infected, you can get by with one dose of vaccine. But I don't think we know enough yet to say that's clear.
In terms of the vaccine, there's all this talk of percentage of protection. It says that the vaccine sort of provides 90% protection, whereas recovery rate from COVID is 99%. I mean, what are the reasons then, when you look at, if you're a gambling person, sort of what are the reasons for taking the vaccine over that? You know, is it to help the hospitals or the health system, or is there any other reason really?
Well, look, there are hundreds of thousands of people who've died, right? So in the first place, if you think just in terms of risk of death, there's a good reason to take the vaccine. But importantly, there's a whole group of people who've been infected. Some of them don't even realize they've been infected, who develop this incapacitating chronic fatigue, mental dysfunction, loss of taste, loss of smell, and there is a huge risk of that. It may be as much as 20% of people who have been infected who will report these kinds of things that can linger for months and perhaps even years. So there are many good reasons to have this vaccine. And in addition, as you've said, you can infect other people, and although you may escape unscathed, they may not. I can't begin to tell you the number of people I know who've been infected and done well, but have fathers and mothers and children who've died with COVID.
I mean, if I could go back in time and sort of be healthy and young again, I might look at this and think, I don't really need it. I mean, I don't need the vaccine. Which seems to be, reasonable enough to think that this isn't something that will affect me. Is there any reason to take it if you're that?
Well, I can tell you right now that in Brazil, where we initially saw the majority of people who were getting infected were over the age of 50 or 60 and had underlying medical conditions. Most of the people now being admitted to hospital who are severely ill are younger people 30 years of age and younger. So as these new variants emerge, we're seeing more and more people who would fit into this quote unquote younger, healthier set that you're referring to. So you are not protected just because you lift weights, take vitamin supplements, and feel good. You need to take this vaccine. It's critical. And the second point, as I said, is even if you escape yourself, there's a possibility that you may infect someone else. So you can protect your grandparents, your parents, people that you care about.
What about the people who think that this is just a hoax, the whole thing, COVID is just a hoax?
I've met people like this. These are the same kind of people who believe that the world is flat. And sadly, there's no way you can convince them.
Yeah.
You show them data, you try to explain to them why it is true, but they don't believe it. So I don't argue with these people anymore. It's not productive.
Yeah, there's better things to. It's called staying off the internet. In terms of there are sort of communities, ethnic minority communities, and they've sort of, they've basically resisted in certain ways because they don't believe that, they don't trust the authorities, have their best interests at heart. I mean, what, could you say to reassure anyone in those communities?
So we have been making a variety of public service announcements. Early during the course of the pandemic, I persuaded the members of the cast of Contagion, it wasn't very difficult actually, to talk about what it is we needed to do to protect one another during the course of the pandemic. When the vaccines became available, I went back to them and said, let's do a vaccine segment. And they said, why should anybody listen to us? We're just movie people. And, I have the same problem. They're not going to listen to comedians, and frankly, some of these people won't listen to doctors. So what it is they want to listen to is people who look like them, people they can relate to. So we went out and we got together a group of people who represented a wide range of populations: Black, Latinx, Asian, various Orthodox religious groups, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Amish, Jewish, you name it. And we got them all to talk about this. And many people found these to be persuasive because, in fact, the highest burden of disease has frequently fallen on these types of communities because they have very dense populations. Frequently, they don't have as much money as other people, so they live in crowded conditions. They work in service industries where they have to interact with the public, and they have congregations that come together for religious purposes. So we are doing our best to reach out to these people because we feel that they are particularly vulnerable. I'm happy to point your readers and listeners and such viewers to some of these public service announcements. Maybe they'll find them useful and compelling.
Yeah, you mentioned in terms of religious groups there as well. So the question, there was a question from some as to whether the vaccine contained pork, gelatine, beef, or egg, which made it unsuitable.
So there are also people who are concerned about fetal tissue, for example. There is nothing in here of that sort. And if you really have concerns about the possibility that some biologically developed vaccine, like an adenovirus vaccine, so forth, is a problem, you can always take one of these purely synthetic vaccines, which has never touched anything related to any sort of animal product. I'm not saying that you should do that. I think, for example, we're talking about the vaccine that's most commonly available in the UK and Ireland is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. There's nothing in there that should worry anybody. There's nothing there that's religiously prescriptive.
In terms then of say, just if you wanted to sort of just reject big pharma completely and you just believed in homeopathy and sort of natural ingredients, is that enough? To sort of bypass taking the vaccine?
Listen, there's no question but that taking care of yourself, your body is excellent, doing things with diet, exercise, and so forth, very, very important, but it is not going to protect you from this virus. There are many otherwise healthy young people who become infected and have actually died with this virus. An example is what's going on now in India and in Brazil. This is the worst challenge that we have faced as a species in over 100 years. And people need to take this very, very seriously.
Is it understandable that people are scared to take it?
I think any unknown can be scary to many people. I have close friends, in fact, people I know who know me from the medical industry, medical science and so forth, who are afraid to take this vaccine. Phobias are not rational. All you can really do is say, look at the alternative. This particular disease it's awful. So not only does it kill people, but it can be associated with these lingering side effects that are incapacitating.
Is there anything, I suppose, as a last question, I'd almost leave it to yourself. Is there anything you'd say to people, to help alleviate their fears generally in terms of the vaccine? You've pretty much covered everything, but is there anything else you can think of?
I think the most important thing to recognize is that this is not the end of the world. We will conquer this pandemic. We will get this virus under control. It is going to require commitment, vaccination, masking, physical distancing, all the things which frankly are sort of practical and almost self-evident. The virus is not going to magically disappear. It will be with us for many, many years to come. Just like influenza. We are going to have to take the jab every other year or every year, we don't yet know, but medical science is going to stay ahead of this and we will get through this. I'm absolutely confident. Okay,
thank you, Dr. Lipkin. So, Doctor, you were saying there might be some people before you wanted to finish that you might want to thank for their work.
Yeah, so last week, that's actually not even last week, it was Sunday, so it's only 2 days ago, I was helping with security for the Oscars. And it was my privilege to work with people in the UK and specifically in Ireland. I wanted to acknowledge them. They were really terrific. So part of your public health group, Keelan DeGaskin, Evelyn Moss, did all the testing for us. They were terrific. In London, Georgette Turner, who ran the program there, also great. And people may not realize this, but two of the leaders in the pandemic response, one from Galway, Mike Ryan, and Pat Drury, work at the World Health Organization, and they are leading the efforts to control this pandemic. And you should be very, very proud of them. And I'll finally say that my wife is half Irish, and that's the part that I liked.
Great, great. Well, thank you again, Dr. Lipkin. I just want to thank Dr. Lipkin for agreeing to do this with us today without receiving any payment, which was fantastic.
Oh, wait a minute. You're getting paid?
Thanks again, Dr. Lipkin. Thank you.
How much are they paying you?
Oh, it's not much. I mean, all the comedy clubs have been closed the last year. I mean, it's not like the laboratories have been closed. I mean, you've been, working away.
That's true. We're still working.
That's
Pleasure
right.
to work with you.
Yeah. Trust
Cheers.
the scientist, not the comedian, doctor. Trust the scientist.